All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down a nationally televised town hall that happened just 3 months after a really shocking act of political violence. And what we're going to see is how this event wasn't just an interview. Oh no, it was the launch of a brand new narrative, a masterclass, really, in how to turn a tragedy into a source of political power. So this is the line that started it all. This was Erica Kirk's very first public statement after her husband's assassination. Think about how powerful and, well, how ambiguous that is. It immediately got the entire country's attention and perfectly set the stage for everything that was about to happen. And that's the big question, isn't it? What did she actually mean? In this explainer, we're going to deconstruct this town hall, piece by piece. We're not just going to look at it as a conversation, but as a clinic in how to seize control of a public story right after a national tragedy. Okay, first up, a national tragedy. This is all about the event that set the stage. Because before we can really get into the communication strategy, we've got to quickly set the scene. Let's revisit the key events that brought us to this moment. So check out this timeline. On September 10th, the assassination happens. Just 2 days later, a suspect is arrested. And then you fast forward about 3 months to December 13th, and boom, a primetime town hall on CBS. What's so striking here is the speed. A deeply personal tragedy becomes a massive national media event. And you gotta know, that doesn't just happen. That's a deliberate choice. Right from the jump, the host, Bari Weiss, frames the entire conversation around this one central idea: persuade with words, not violence. Now that's a really critical move because it creates a very specific lens. It sets up a filter where every single question and every single answer is going to be seen through this framework of dialogue versus violence. All right, next up, crafting the narrative. This is all about turning tragedy into a mission. This is where things get really fascinating, because this is where we see a personal story of grief get transformed into a huge public and even spiritual cause. So remember that really charged word, unleashed? The very first thing Erica Kirk does is define it on her own terms. She takes immediate control. It's not a political threat, she says. It's not a call to violence. No. It's a revival. It's the movement of the Holy Spirit. You know, this is a foundational move in persuasion. If you control the language, you control the whole debate. And then they dig in even deeper with this moral framing. Look at the language here. Anyone who justified the murder, they're not just wrong, they are sick and evil. Their souls have something very sick inside. You see what's happening, right? The conflict is being reframed entirely. This isn't about politics anymore. It's a battle between evil and light. And that transforms your political opponents into moral enemies, which is an incredibly powerful tool for mobilizing people. Okay, on to our next section, navigating hard questions. This is the anatomy of a difficult conversation. And this is where the strategy becomes crystal clear. We get to see the playbook in action, under pressure, so pay really close attention to how she handles the toughest questions of the night. The first major test comes from the host herself. Bari Weiss brings up some of Charlie Kirk's own pretty inflammatory rhetoric. She reads his quotes about things like black pilots and the Civil Rights Act, and then she asks the question head on. How does that square with this new mission of civil discourse? And the response? It's a classic deflection. Instead of engaging with the substance of the quotes, the answer is to call for context. He was a thought leader who shouldn't be deteriorated to 2 sentences. This is a brilliant tactic. It shifts the blame away from what was actually said and puts it onto the media for their process. The goal isn't to defend the statement, it's to make anyone who criticizes it look unfair. But then came the moment that was probably the single most direct challenge of the entire night. A student who was actually there during the assassination connects this call for civility directly to Donald Trump, the leader of her entire political movement. He asks, will you condemn his rhetoric? And just watch this pivot. It is a masterclass in redirection. The direct question is, condemn Donald Trump's rhetoric? But the pivot is, this is deeper than one person. The challenge is, hold leaders accountable. And the answer is, it starts at the home. It's an expert move. A specific, very difficult political question gets completely dissolved into this vague, broad critique of parenting that no one can really argue with. You avoid accountability, but you look like you answered the question. Now for our next section, confronting conspiracies.
or as we could call it, drawing a line in the sand. The town hall also had to deal with the absolute flood of conspiracy theories that popped up after the assassination. And the really tricky part was that a lot of them were coming from her own side. And to her credit, the host didn't shy away. She directly named Candace Owens, a former colleague of Charlie Kirk who was pushing these theories hard. And she asked, point blank, "What do you want to say to her and the others putting these lies out there?" And the response was just a single word: stop. That's it. And honestly, it's a communications masterstroke. By refusing to engage with the substance of the lies, you deny them any further oxygen. You don't debate them because that gives them legitimacy. You just shut the conversation down completely. You draw a hard, unambiguous line. Okay, now we get to the emotional peak of the entire event, the power of forgiveness, the ultimate moral statement. This was the moment that you just knew was designed to be clipped and shared everywhere. It was the discussion about her publicly forgiving the man accused of murdering her husband. But once again, listen very carefully to how she defines forgiveness. It's not about condoning the act or letting the accused off the hook. In fact, she's very clear that there must be earthly justice. For her, forgiveness is a strategic, spiritual act for her own well-being. It's about releasing myself from the enemy's hands. By framing it that way, she claims the ultimate moral high ground. I mean, how can you possibly attack that position? It makes her unassailable. So, if we pull all this together and distill it down, what's the playbook? Let's do a summary of the techniques we've observed. What can we really take away from watching this incredibly polished performance? So here it is, the playbook in 5 clear steps. 1. Control the frame. Define the problem on your terms. 2. Moralize the mission. Use spiritual language to elevate your cause. 3. Redirect difficult questions. Pivot away from danger. 4. Apply asymmetric standards. Harsh words for them, excuses for us. And 5. Perform moral authority. Use acts like forgiveness to make yourself impossible to criticize. Now look, this isn't just about one town hall. This is a blueprint for persuasion. And once you understand it, you start to see it being used everywhere to shape what we believe. And all of this leaves us with one final thought. Understanding this playbook gives you a new lens, a new tool to look at all political communication. It forces you to ask yourself a critical question. When you're watching, are you seeing a genuine exchange of ideas, or are you watching a highly polished performance designed from the very beginning to win you over?